Hi, Casey here, and today I'm going to be showing you how I made a full-size headboard using some foam, plywood, some vinyl I got from Joann's, burlap backing just to hide my work, a lot of staples, and some pearl buttons that I got from Wal-Mart. So stay tuned and I'll show you how I came up with this creation, starting from a pen and paper and design with all of the measurements and materials to about, I don't know, maybe 5 hours of total work. Alright, so essentially all I've done so far is, this is a regular piece of plywood and it's 54 by 30 inches. I have my blueprint, which I already showed you, and I essentially just took my straight yard stick and measured out my design and pre-drew all of my diamonds, and I drilled the holes in it already. I used a 3x16 bit. You know, I didn't want to really go too big or too small, just something big enough for me to be able to put the needle through and pull the cord I'm going to use through, but you'll see that later. So you want to keep this side exposed. So what I'm going to do is flip it over to the rough side, because later on this will really help you as your guide as you're putting the buttons on, but we'll get to that a little later. So rough side exposed. Of course, adhesive sticks to the rough side a lot better. Got just regular old Elmers craft bond here, and the foam I'm going to use is just some, regular old queen size egg carton foam. You can pick it up from Wal-Mart, Marshalls, wherever, unless you want to be fancy and get the actual 3 to 4 inch foam that they sell at the regular stores, or Joann's or whatever, but that's too expensive for what we're doing. So you just want to get a good coat, put the flat side down, and then get a good coat on the egg carton side, put those down and let that dry. So just about 6 to 8 inches off. And I'm going to be very liberal. If you don't want to use this, you can use hot glue gun, you can use any type of glue bond that you want. But at the end of the day, you just want it to stick enough so that when you start putting the fabric on and start putting the buttons through the fabric, that it stays in place. That's essentially all you really want it to do, is stay in place while you're doing your work. And I like to get the corners a lot. Alright, so this should just about be enough. And according to this, you want it to sit for about 15 seconds before you put it on there for maximum adhesiveness, but yeah, as long as you get it on there, because we're going to let it sit for a little while anyway. So the first one here, to measure it, all I really did was just roll it out, put it up against the board, and cut using the board as a guide. So it doesn't have to be perfect, because the beautiful thing about this glue is you can pick it up, move it around, and it's foam. You can always cut away or add to if you need. So you don't have to be exact. It's not a perfect science. All right. Make sure you get a good press on it. Now, what I would normally do is sit one side down, sit the egg carton side down if I'm only going to do one layer, but I want it a little thicker, so I'm going to put the egg carton side up so you get that nice maximum bond there, and we can put the egg carton to the egg carton and it kind of meshes well. So just repeat the same steps. And be careful you're not wearing anything nice while you're doing this, or you're not inside, because this glue, as you see it, I'm spraying it, it's coming out and it's actually sticking down here to the concrete a little bit. So be somewhere that you don't really mind getting a little dirty, or you don't mind getting this glue on. Alright. About a third of the bottom gone, not bad. Got some left over for the next project. All right, so let this dry a little bit, and as you can see, you know, it's sticking enough so that it won't fall apart as we're working with it. I went on ahead and drew the holes from based on the guidelines that I had on the back, and I gutted them out. To do that, all you essentially want to do is take a long needle. This is an upholstery needle, you know, just a huge threading needle. And you just want to use, based on the guidelines that you drew on the back, this is another reason you want to have your design that you drew facing outward on the smooth side. So you just take that and you go through the holes on the back. As that pokes through, you just take your magic marker, draw a little small hole around it, make any type of mark. And as you lay it down, after you have all of them drawn, this here is a fancy tool I have. It's an old shower rod. I took a pair of pliers and just kind of, you know, pinched the sides a little bit so that it's serrated. And essentially all I did is go into each hole and just drilled it out. And once they're finished, because they're glued down, you can pluck them out, or you can get them out of the bottom of your pole there. A lot of people do use the bigger drill bits. Really doesn't matter what you use. Doesn't have to be perfectly in line with the holes, but you do want to make sure that you can at least see the holes that you drilled through the hole that you just gutted out, because you're going to use those as guidelines whenever it's time to pull your buttons through. So now, since this is two separate pieces, I want to go ahead and cut the guidelines for the tufting. And the reason I'm cutting the guidelines is because it makes it a lot simpler for me to tuck the fabric, and it gives it that kind of overlay look whenever you're doing the tufting. You'll see that a little bit later. So essentially, I'm just going to go between the first and second. I'm just going to cut little guides all the way through. That's it. You might want to use a razor blade if you decided to go with the solid foam. Be a little simpler. And on the edges, you're also going to go from the edge in, and that's just going to give it that nice, neat, clean finish at the end. So you're essentially going to do this between every hole diagonally and the ends of the holes around the edges, and that's what's going to give you that good diamond cut. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish up all of this. So I went on ahead and let me let you see how this looks under here. I pre-measured out the vinyl that I'm going to use for the actual exterior of our headboard here. I put the batting on it, you know, just cut out the batting to the same measurements and cut it. But this is what it looks like after I finish cutting all the slits. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier was whenever you cut these slits, you don't want to go all the way to the hole, because if you do and this starts to come apart because it didn't stick as good as we wanted it to, then you'll cut it out. Like I said, it's stuck enough for what I needed it, but you don't want to go all the way to the hole. So, all right, to hold it in place, all I did was took a staple gun, and you can see the slits on the back there. I just kind of stapled 1, 2, 3. So that way, oh, there you go, 1, 2, 3. So that way I don't have to fight with it too much, and we can always go back, pull those out, and restaple them when it comes to time to finish off the edges. Another thing I did was I went on ahead and pre-cut a bunch of hemp cord, because it's strong, it's not going to tear or rip, and that'll be important later. But you just get your buttons that you're going to use. I'm using pearl buttons with a kind of a vintage silver design on the outside. I think that goes well with this navy blue color here, and you just want to tie it in that way. Whenever you need to grab one, you can grab it. So this is where a nice upholstery needle is gonna really come in handy. It has that eyelet that is big enough for you to put this through whenever you're gonna come back through with the buttons. And what I like to do is start in the middle. That way, whatever excess cloth, it'll be uniform around the entire piece we're doing here. So essentially, I start in the very middle hole that I'm going through, that I'm gonna be on, and I poke that first hole. And when I poke that first hole, I'm going to try to hold on to that with my finger, and I'm going to go back through the back with the eyelet side. And I'm doing that this way because this is vinyl. and it's kind of easy for me to, using that pre-existing hole, just kind of poke through again. If I was using cotton or something, I may want to get another upholstery needle that has a little sharper edge in here and poke it back through. Or I've seen techniques where people have the two needles and they tape them together and you poke through, and as you're poking through it, the eyelet is there for you to put the cord through. But essentially, once you have it through, it's important that the eyelet part is facing outward. That way I can go ahead and run my cord through. Now you don't want it all the way down here. You want a little, maybe 1 or 2 inches slack. And then if you come around back here, you'll see how this is going to end up. So you just, essentially, you're going to pull it through. And the reason you want that 1 to 2 inches of play is so that you can actually get it through, because the tufting is going to, I mean, not the tufting, but the foam is going to give it some resistance here. So what you want to do is you want to find that end that isn't on the button and pull it through. So now you have your button through, and this is where you got to have a little bit of skill, because what you want to do is, like I said, this foam is going to give us that resistance. So as I pull this through, and this is where it's imperative that the actual cord is strong enough, because you don't want it to pop as you're pulling it through. But as I pull this through, I also want to reach around on the other side and press in on the button, because I want that to be as flush as possible with, and this is why it's important to gut those holes in the foam, as flush as possible. And when I get that as flush as possible, then I'm going to kind of come around the back here. I'm going to come around here, and I'm just going to pull. All right, so sorry about that, viewers. Video seemed to cut out on me, but show must go on. So I went on ahead and finished this off, and let's see how I do the second one. What I'm going to do is, bear with me, you're going to see how to finish this in the back. But essentially, since this one is already done, you can see how you already have those grooves and creases. You want to use those because they're going to naturally follow the guidelines of the tufted holes that, the slits that you put for the tufting. So this one I went on ahead and pre-put it in, and as I put it in, I didn't pull tight or anything. I just made sure that it was kind of smooth and use the natural tension of it. You know, you don't want it too loose or too tight. So come around here. All right, now, like I said, you want to go ahead, push it in, and what you didn't get the chance to see was, hold that for me right there, brace that for me. If I wasn't recording, I would have this braced on another bench or something. But once you pull it in, you're going to want to pull up to keep that tension. Then you just take your staple gun and you hit it once, you come down, and you just hit it a couple more times. I like to do it about 4 or 5 times. And that'll keep that tension. Come on. All right, so those staples didn't go in like I wanted them to, but it does the job. Now, of course, this is probably the most tedious but most important part of this, for the simple fact, this is the final product that everyone's gonna see. I'm gonna come back once I have all of the buttons on and I have the diamonds put out, and show you how to do the corners and trim the edges for the to finish the front. But this is why we cut those slits out, because there's a natural pull in that slit to give it that tufted look. And you're gonna get that all over. When you come to the edges, you'll see that you're gonna wanna kind of fold over the side. I'll show you that. All right, so stay tuned. All right, so as you can see, I just about done. Got all of the sides all tufted down and everything. Just simple stapling all around the back of it. But what we're gonna do now is, since I went on ahead and took the liberty of finishing the rest, I want to show you how I did it and how I do the corners. So essentially, remember the slits that we cut in between the holes that we gouged out? You're gonna work your hand, your thumb, your finger, however, into those, and you'll feel your way up. And as you feel your way up, you'll see a groove or a crease starting to form. So you want to work that crease, and you want to pinch off a little piece up here toward that groove, and just pull all of the excess down. And once you pull it tight enough and you get the desired look you want, that looks pretty good. Once you get the desired look you want, then you just staple it back in place. So. And then we're going to, I think I like it a little better when this one is tighter first, so. Now, if you can, go ahead and staple it with the crease. That way it has a better chance of keeping that crease. Make sure it's a good staple. All right, so that looks pretty good. Now, as far as the corner, I like to tuck it under and toward the top because people are more apt to see the sides than they are to see the top and the bottom of it. So essentially, just like making a bed, you fold over, you make your hospital fold, and it tucks back like that. Do something that looks something like that, but with it under. So I'll tuck it under. Tuck it under there. Get my 45 degrees-ish. Pull tight. Come up. Tuck it tight. You want it to tuck on the board. You don't want that crease to be so far out that it's too noticeable. So that looks about right. It looks smooth, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down from the top, keep the tension on. Just hit it with a staple. So, and there you have it. All I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna come around. A lot of this excess fabric you really don't need, so you can trim it around, like trim it just a little underneath the cloth, so that way you have something to grip onto. And I'll show you once I finish trimming it up and making it all pretty and neat, how I put the burlap or whatever fabric you want to put on the back. You know, just kind of hide your work from your customers or from keeping all these pins scratching your wall when you put it up. Alright, so finally you want to put a backing on your project. So for the back of this headboard, I like burlap, so I went with this design burlap here. Minor note, I mean not important, but whenever you're using a burlap with a design, you want the top of the design to be at the top of the front of your project. Even though this is more than likely not going to be seen by anyone except whoever's hanging it, it just makes sense to the mind to hang things with the lettering or the top of whatever you're going to do, even though it's the back. So as you see, I got a couple of extra inches going both ways, maybe a foot or so. It's not really that important because, like I said, this is the back. All you really want to do is get this first corner good and snug, and then I just tuck back maybe about a ½ inch. And as I tuck back, I'm just going to go around the entire side, just staple in place. This not only reinforce the material that we're using, but I mean, if it's not perfect, you know, it's not a deal killer. And as you get to the other side there, you just take your shears or your scissors and cut it, and then you're done. So let me go ahead and finish this all the way around. And pull it. You don't want it too tight, but you don't want it too loose either. And be liberal with your staple gun. Don't be afraid to use it. Here you see the final product. Like I said, you know, we only started from a couple of pieces of foam and some backing, and this is what you have after about maybe 5 hours total of do-it-yourself time, and you have a beautiful full-size headboard. This is what the back ended up looking like after doing all the staples. I mean, you know, looks good enough to present to anyone. And here, I just got these little hangers. They're the little slat hangers from Home Depot, and you just put them wherever you want to put them. I recommend in the studs in your walls, because this right here, I mean, even though it's not too heavy, it isn't very light, maybe about 15 pounds, 20 pounds. But you put these on your studs, and wherever you find you put them on your studs, just get you a good level, and put them about, I don't know, maybe a third of the way down so they're hidden, and hang it, and there you go. So if you like the final product here and you'd like to see more of my future DIY projects, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.